About 100 years ago, when you and I sat next to each other on the House Armed Services Committee, did you ever dream we'd be in a situation like this?
I never dreamt I'd be here either. But no, if we had those discussions, I think Senator, we considered them pure fantasy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I can remember some of the discussion at that time. At that time, we were wondering about whether B-1 Bob was going to be successful in carrying on that program, and it didn't seem like there's anything really traumatic. And I'm just it's kind of a serious observation because I'm going from memory. Well, you mentioned sending some troops to some of these places that might surprise people. You mentioned Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. I was over there. And when you have some troops going over there, generally it's for a fairly restricted period of time, isn't it? Shorter period of time. I wonder about the wisdom of that program, because all of them, to the last one, said, well, I don't know, where are they? We need to have them back. They all expect that to be a permanent transfer. When that happens, you might think about that. And you talked about, General Odierno, all the different contingencies, things that are taking place right now all over the world. It's totally unprecedented. And I wonder, if you were to be forced into another totally different major contingency, what would you do?
We would end up sending troops over that are not properly trained.
That's exactly what I thought. And you addressed this a little bit, Secretary James, when in your 1, 2, 3 things you outlined. Your second one was you got to keep the balance right between today and then modernization. So you have 2 things that are being drained right now: training, and I suspect modernization. You talked about what equipment, what we're looking at in terms of the future. But I'm sure that you're not reaching the goals that you had a year ago on where we should be. So that is suffering now, isn't it?
You're right, Senator, and moreover, of course, the message here is sequestration would make all of this much, much worse.
Sure.
And of course, the first goal is taking care of people, and even though under sequestration in the past, people were protected, the numbers of people and so forth, there's MWR programs, there's a variety of other things which might not survive in the forms that we would like and the funding levels that we would like. We would have to look at all of those things. So we think everything would be hurt.
Yeah. General Welsh, you and I talked. We talked over in Arkansas when we all went over to to the meeting over there. And I don't see our senator from Arkansas who was in the same meeting. But at that time, we talked about flying hours because we were both flying in there. And I've changed the figures that I used to use because Laser updated them for me, and it's more that to retain a pilot of the F-22 level, it would be about a bonus over 9 years of $225,000. You addressed this, Madam Secretary. And yet to train a new one from the beginning, it would be $9 million. That's still huge. Now, do I understand from your statement that this retention is not as bad as it was, say, a year ago? And doesn't it kind of go with the economy? If the economy improves from where it is today, there'll be more competition with the airlines. Is this true?
Senator, it's absolutely true. And historically, all the services have lost pilots as the airlines hired. We expect the airline industry to hire roughly 20,000 pilots over the next 10 years. So yeah. 2,000 a year, and their change in requirements for their hiring means that military aviators will be a much target for them. One
of their motives to get out is that a lot of them don't feel they're getting adequate flying hours in. Is that true today?
Senator, it is true, although the Balanced Budget Act over the last 2 years has allowed us to fly a much more regular pace than we had in the years before that. BCA will bring back the frustration.
Yeah, I think that's one of a lot of things that can go and really help this situation. You know, we're doing people on this committee are doing all we can right now during this budget time. We're running out of time, and I have just one last question, something to be thinking about. If Congress would pass a budget resolution that funds at the sequestration levels with the intent to raise defense funding levels later in the year, when is the Army and the Air Force forced to take irreversible action with regards to force structure, personnel, programs, if you were forced in that situation? Got any idea about when that would happen?
Senator, just to make sure I understood you right, if the initial authorization was to the PB level?
Yes, if we come out with a budget that brings it down, so you're suffering from the sequestration, but with a message and language that we're going to come back later in the year, when is it just, do you reach that point where it's kind of irreversible, you can't recover? Have you thought about that?
Senator, if we were funded to the PB level with a promise of more later, I don't see the catastrophic action that'll be required. The BCA level would be different, and I'd need to get back to you with that.
Yeah.
Unless the boss has a better
Just some
view of
thoughts
that.
on that.
And I believe the answer, Senator, is if we're funded come October 1st at the BCA level, we have to immediately start taking actions. And so, you know, perhaps immediately it's not catastrophic, but I think it, you know, very soon would become very serious. So that's sort of my off-the-cuff answer, but I'd like to come back as well.
Well, yeah, it's not necessary to come back on that. It's just that it's kind of the nature of the beast during this process to say, well, we're going to have to hurt you now, but we're going to figure out something later in the year. So just keep that in mind. Thank you, Mr.
Senator, if I could, I would like to, Chairman, if I may. Okay.
Yes, of course.
So the one issue here that we keep running into is, for us, we stop training. And so that can't just be fixed with money. It is time and money. So every bit of time we lose pushes us back further. So if we go to sequestration levels, for us, we can't take any more force structure out. We're already on that road. Mm-hmm. So it comes directly out of modernization and training dollars. So what'll happen is we'll start canceling training. And if we get it 3 or 4 months later, we've lost 3 or 4 months of training. And in fact, to reschedule it, you'll have units that will then miss a whole cycle of training because they will have missed their opportunity, and it might not come around again for a whole nother year. Yeah. So you then get on this cycle of really downward readiness capability, and that's why it's so important to us.
And you'd have to be sending troops forward.
That's
perhaps not trained to the. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Manch.
Thank you.